You know what they say about routine missions in space. They're about as routine as a root canal performed by a caffeinated squirrel. Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez had learned this the hard way over her 5 years aboard the research vessel Wanderlust, and today was shaping up to be another stellar example of Murphy's Law in action. "Rodriguez, quit your whining and get that containment field stabilized," Captain Hendricks barked over the comm, his voice crackling with the kind of authority that came from never having to actually crawl into the guts of alien machinery himself. Maya wiped the sweat from her forehead as she wrestled with the portable containment unit's power coupling. The dead planet below them looked like someone had taken a cheese grater to the surface and then set the whole thing on fire for good measure. And naturally, that's exactly where the archaeological team had found their latest prize. "Sir, I'm just saying," Maya grunted, giving the coupling another twist. "Maybe we should consider the possibility that an ancient alien artifact sitting alone on a completely lifeless planet might be there for a reason. You know, like a really, really good reason." Through the shuttle's viewport, she could see the artifact in question. It was roughly the size of a coffin, which Maya found deeply reassuring. Nothing good ever came in coffin-sized packages, especially not coffin-sized packages covered in what appeared to be warning symbols. Dr. Amanda Foster, the team's lead xenoarchaeologist, floated nearby in her EVA suit, practically vibrating with excitement as she ran her scanner over the container's surface. "Scroll on. Maya, this is incredible. The energy signatures are unlike anything we've encountered. The civilization that created this was clearly far more advanced than we initially thought." "Yeah, and they're all dead now," Maya muttered under her breath. "Funny how that works out." The artifact itself was a study in mixed messages. Beautiful flowing script covered every inch of its metallic surface, interwoven with symbols that even Maya's untrained eye could recognize as warnings. Skulls were pretty universal, it turned out, and this thing had skulls in about 17 different artistic styles. "Foster, what's your read on those markings?" Captain Hendricks' voice crackled through the comm. "Well, sir, there's definitely some warning text here, but most of it appears to be ceremonial. You know how these ancient civilizations loved their dramatic flair. Probably just standard beware the curse of the pharaoh type stuff." Maya nearly choked on her recycled air. "Ceremonial? Doc, I count at least 3 different alien languages all saying variations of do not open in increasingly large fonts. That last one there actually seems to be written in what I can only describe as angry punctuation marks." "Rodriguez, you're not a linguist," Hendricks cut in. "Foster, prep it for transport. We'll analyze it properly back on the ship." And there it was. The moment Maya had been dreading since they'd first detected the artifact's energy signature from orbit. She watched as the loading clamps engaged, lifting the container into the shuttle's cargo bay with all the ceremony of loading groceries. "You know, Captain," Maya said, securing the containment field around their new acquisition, "there's an old Earth saying about curiosity in cats. Spoiler alert, it doesn't end well for the cat." Noted, Rodriguez. "Now quit being so dramatic and run a full diagnostic on that containment field. I want triple redundancy on this thing." Maya ran her hands over the control panel, double-checking every connection. The irony wasn't lost on her that they were being extra careful with their safety equipment, while completely ignoring every possible warning about the thing they were trying to contain. As the shuttle detached from the planet's surface, Maya caught one last glimpse of the dead world below. Whatever had happened down there, it had been thorough. No atmosphere, no magnetic field, no signs of life more complex than crystalline formations. Just rock, radiation, and the lingering energy signature of whatever had once called this place home. The artifact hummed quietly in its containment field, patient as a predator. Back aboard the Wanderlust, Maya watched from the observation deck as the science team set up their analysis equipment around the artifact. She'd tried suggesting they maybe start with some basic precautions, like evacuating non-essential personnel or setting up a blast shield, but Dr. Foster had dismissed her concerns with the kind of academic confidence that usually preceded catastrophic discoveries. "Really, Maya, you're being overly cautious," Foster said, adjusting her scanner for the 3rd time. "The containment readings have been stable for hours. Whatever's in here has been dormant for millennia." Maya gestured at the warning symbols covering the container. "Doc, I hate to interrupt your scientific enthusiasm, but have you actually tried translating any of these markings? Because I ran them through the computer, and the results are what you might call deeply concerning. Foster barely glanced up from her equipment. Oh, the translation matrix is notoriously unreliable with ancient scripts, and half of those warnings probably just say property of the high priest or something equally mundane. Actually, Maya pulled up her datapad. They say things like sealed for the sanity of all species. May the gods forgive us for creating this. And my personal favorite? If you can read this, you've already made a terrible mistake. The science team exchanged glances, but their excitement was clearly overriding their survival instincts. Maya had seen this before. Give a researcher something sufficiently mysterious, and they'd happily poke it with a stick until it either revealed its secrets or ate them. Sometimes both. Commander Torres, the ship's first officer, moved closer to the artifact. What about the energy readings, Foster? Anything we should be concerned about? That's the fascinating part, Foster said, her scanner beeping steadily. The energy signature is incredibly complex, almost like it's actively maintaining some kind of internal process. The power source appears to be entirely self-contained, which suggests technology far beyond our current understanding. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. Self-contained for 3,000 years. And nobody thinks that's maybe a little ominous? Just me? Really? The artifact chose that moment to pulse with a soft, bluish light. The containment field flickered for just a second, but it was enough to make everyone in the lab take a step back. Everyone except Foster, who practically pressed her nose against the scanner display. Incredible. The energy output just spiked by 300%. It's almost like it's responding to our presence. Or our poking, Maya muttered. Doc, maybe we should consider the possibility that some things are better left alone. You know, like that box down there that 17 different civilizations all agreed should never be opened. Foster waved her off. Maya, that's exactly the kind of thinking that kept humanity in caves. Scientific progress requires taking calculated risks. Yeah, but the key word there is calculated. This feels more like catastrophically stupid. The artifact pulsed again, brighter this time, and Maya could swear she heard something. Not quite a sound, more like a vibration that seemed to resonate in her bones. Whatever was inside was definitely awake now, and probably not thrilled about being poked with scanning equipment. Commander Torres frowned at his tricorder. Energy levels are continuing to climb. Maybe we should consider moving this to a more secure location. Nonsense, Foster said, but Maya noticed she'd taken a small step back from the container. We're perfectly safe here. The containment field is holding steady, and the lab's emergency protocols are state-of-the-art. Maya glanced around the lab, mentally cataloging escape routes and emergency equipment. The blast doors were 20 meters away, the emergency beacon was by the main console, and the life pods were 3 decks up. Not that any of it would matter if whatever was in that box decided to get creative. The artifact pulsed a third time, and this time everyone heard the sound, a low, thrumming vibration that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The containment field flickered again, more dramatically this time, and several of the lab's instruments began showing error readings. Foster, Maya said, backing toward the door, I really think we should evacuate the lab and... The container cracked. It wasn't a dramatic explosion or a shower of sparks, just a thin line appearing along one edge of the artifact, as if the metal itself had simply decided it was tired of holding together. The crack was maybe 6 inches long, but it might as well have been a chasm for the way everyone in the lab suddenly went silent. Foster stared at her readings. That shouldn't be possible. The structural integrity was perfect just minutes ago. Maya was already moving toward the emergency controls. Yeah, well, apparently nobody told the box that. The crack widened, revealing a soft, warm light from within. Whatever was inside wasn't just alive, it was getting ready to introduce itself. The containment field chose that moment to fail completely, because of course it did. Maya had exactly enough time to think I told you so before the artifact split open like a blooming flower made of nightmares and poor life choices. What emerged was not what anyone expected. The terrible beast of ancient legend, the creature so dangerous that multiple civilizations had conspired to seal it away for eternity. turned out to be about the size of a house cat. It was covered in soft, brownish fur that looked incredibly fluffy, had oversized eyes that would have made a cartoon character jealous, and tiny paws that it used to delicately step out of its prison. The entire science team stood frozen, staring at what appeared to be the galaxy's most adorable disappointment. The creature stretched, yawned, and looked around the lab with the expression of someone who had just woken up from a very long nap. Then it opened its mouth and spoke in perfect, if slightly whiny English. "Oh, fantastic. Just fantastic. 3,000 years in that cramped excuse for a prison. And I wake up to find myself surrounded by the kind of species that probably thinks hold my beer and watch this as a valid scientific methodology." Maya blinked. Did it just insult our entire species? 27 minutes, the creature continued, sitting down and beginning to groom its paw with the casual confidence of someone who knew they were the most important being in the room. 27 minutes you've been poking at my containment unit. I was keeping track. Do you have any idea how annoying scanning equipment sounds from the inside? It's like listening to someone chew with their mouth open while scratching a chalkboard. Dr. Foster stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her confusion. You're not what we expected. The creature, who Maya was already mentally calling the most sarcastic fluffball in the galaxy, fixed Foster with a look of pure disdain. "Oh, let me guess. You expected some slavering monster with too many teeth and a bad attitude? Sorry to disappoint, but the universe's idea of cosmic horror tends toward the existentially annoying rather than the physically threatening." Commander Torres cleared his throat. "What exactly are you?" The creature said with the kind of dramatic flair usually reserved for stage actors and politicians, "Am Kefetch. I am the last of the Pessimeri, a species renowned throughout the galaxy for our unparalleled ability to point out exactly why everything is doomed to fail spectacularly." Maya couldn't help herself. "So you're professionally grumpy?" Ketch's ears perked up and he fixed her with what might have been an approving look. Finally, someone who gets it. "Yes, I am professionally grumpy. I was the chief advisor to the Zeridian Empire, back before they decided that listening to uncomfortable truths was less important than maintaining their positive attitudes." "The Zeridians sealed you away?" Foster asked, still trying to process the situation. "Oh no, not sealed. Temporarily relocated for the greater good of galactic mental health," Kvetch said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Apparently pointing out that their expansion strategy was unsustainable, their military tactics were poorly thought out, and their emperor was an idiot made me a negative influence on morale. Maya found herself leaning forward despite herself. What happened to them? Ketch's expression became smugly satisfied. "Exactly what I predicted. Overextended empire, military coup, civilization collapsed within 50 years. I would say I told them so, but they were all dead by then, which really took the satisfaction out of it." The science team exchanged uncertain glances. This was definitely not the ancient evil they'd prepared for. Maya, however, was starting to appreciate the situation. After years of being the voice of doom that nobody listened to, she'd finally met someone who shared her worldview. "So you're not dangerous?" Torres asked. Ketch's laugh was bitter. "Dangerous? Oh, my dear militarily minded bipedal disaster, I am absolutely dangerous. I'm dangerous to overconfidence, dangerous to poorly thought out plans, and extremely dangerous to the kind of willful ignorance that leads species to poke ancient alien artifacts without reading the warning labels." Maya crossed her arms and grinned. "I like him." "Of course you do," Kvetch said, fixing her with an appraising look. "You're the one who tried to stop them from opening my prison, weren't you? Let me guess, they ignored your warnings, dismissed your concerns, and went ahead with their plans anyway, because what could possibly go wrong?" "Are you psychic?" Maya asked. "No, just experienced. Your species has that particular combination of curiosity and stupidity that I've seen destroy at least 6 civilizations. The Zeridians had it too." Dr. Foster was frantically taking notes. "This is incredible. A living repository of galactic history, with first-hand knowledge of multiple civilizations." Kvetch groaned. "Oh great, she's already planning to study me, isn't she? Let me save you some time, Doctor. Every civilization thinks they're special. Every civilization thinks they're different. And every civilization makes exactly the same mistakes as the ones that came before them. The only variable is how spectacular the eventual collapse will be. Maya was definitely warming up to their new passenger. Over the next few hours, while the science team debated what to do with their unexpected guest, Maya found herself gravitating toward Ketch. There was something refreshing about talking to someone who shared her pessimistic worldview, even if that someone was a fluffy alien with an attitude problem. "So let me get this straight," Maya said, sitting cross-legged on the lab floor while Ketch perched on a nearby equipment crate. "Your entire species was basically professional wet blankets?" "We prefer the term reality consultants," Ketch replied, grooming his tail with the kind of precise attention that suggested it was very important to maintain one's appearance even after 3 millennia in prison. "The Pessimeri were highly sought after as advisors precisely because we had an uncanny ability to predict exactly how badly things were going to go wrong." Maya laughed. "That actually sounds like a useful skill. Why did everyone keep getting rid of you?" Ketch's expression became even more dour, which Maya hadn't thought was possible. "Because nobody actually wants to hear that their brilliant plan is doomed to fail catastrophically. They want advisors who will tell them what they want to hear, not advisors who will tell them what they need to know." "Story of my life," Maya muttered. "Do you know how many times I've watched my crewmates make decisions that any reasonably intelligent rock could see were terrible ideas?" "Let me guess," Ketch said, his whiskers twitching with what might have been amusement. "They dismiss your concerns as being negative, tell you to think positive, and then act surprised when everything goes exactly as wrong as you predicted it would." Maya stared at him. "Are you sure you're not psychic?" "Because that's literally my career in a nutshell. It's not psychic ability, it's pattern recognition. Optimistic species always follow the same script. First, they ignore obvious warning signs. Then they take unnecessary risks. Then they blame external factors when everything falls apart. Finally, they repeat the entire cycle because this time will be different." Dr. Foster approached their little corner of the lab, her datapad in hand, and an expression of barely contained excitement on her face. "Ketch, I was hoping we could discuss your experiences with the Zeridian Empire. Your perspective on their technological development could be invaluable to our understanding of—" "Doctor," Ketch interrupted, "I appreciate your enthusiasm, but I've spent 3,000 years thinking about the Zeridians. Trust me when I say that reviewing their mistakes is not how I want to spend my first day of freedom." Foster's face fell. "But surely you understand the scientific value." "What I understand," Ketch said, his tone becoming dangerously flat, "is that you're already making the same mistake they did. You're so focused on what you can gain from this situation that you're completely ignoring the potential consequences." Maya felt a chill. "What kind of consequences?" Ketch's ears flattened against his head. "The kind that result from removing a 3,000-year-old containment key from its designated position without understanding what it was containing." The lab went silent. Even the background hum of the ship's systems seemed to quiet, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Commander Torres stepped forward. "Containment key? You mean you weren't the prisoner?" "Oh, I was definitely a prisoner," Ketch said, his voice taking on the patient tone of someone explaining something obvious to someone slow. "But I was also serving a secondary function. The Pessimeri have certain electromagnetic properties that make us useful for containing energy-based entities. My prison was designed to use my natural field to keep something much worse locked away." Maya felt her stomach drop. "Define much worse." "The kind of much worse that feeds on technological energy and reproduces exponentially. The kind of much worse that the Zeridians accidentally created while experimenting with dimensional barriers. The kind of much worse that they needed a living containment system to keep locked away because conventional methods weren't sufficient." Dr. Foster's face had gone pale. "You're talking about some kind of parasite?" "Energy parasites, to be precise. They were the real reason the Zeridian Empire collapsed. Not overextension or military coups won, but an exponentially reproducing swarm of energy-feeding entities that systematically consumed every piece of technology in their civilization." Maya was already moving toward the emergency console when the first power fluctuation hit. The lights flickered, the life support systems hiccuped, and somewhere in the distance, an alarm began to sound. Ketch sighed deeply. And that would be them, right on schedule. "Congratulations, everyone. You've just unleashed a species-ending catastrophe because you couldn't be bothered to read the warning labels. Maya looked at the fluffy creature who had somehow become their only hope of survival. Please tell me you know how to stop them. Ketch's expression became thoughtful. Well, there is one way. But you're not going to like it. The lights flickered again, more dramatically this time. Trust me, Maya said. At this point, I'll take any solution you've got. The ship's emergency klaxons were now wailing in the particular rhythm that meant catastrophic system failure imminent, which Maya recognized from her extensive experience with things going horribly wrong. Throughout the Wanderlust, lights flickered erratically as the energy parasites spread through the ship's power grid like a virus made of pure hunger. Report. Captain Hendrick's voice crackled over the intercom, distorted by power fluctuations. Maya grabbed her communicator. Sir, we've got what I can only describe as technological locusts eating our ship from the inside out. Engineering reports power drains in sections 7 through 12, and it's spreading fast. How fast? Torres asked, consulting his rapidly failing tricorder. Ketch, who had found a comfortable perch on Maya's shoulder, sighed dramatically. At this rate, you'll have total system failure in approximately 47 minutes. 46 if they reach the reactor core, which they will, because they're drawn to high-energy systems like moths to a flame. A flame that will consume everything you've ever built. Dr. Foster was frantically trying to scan the ship's systems with increasingly unreliable equipment. The energy readings are off the charts. These parasites are converting matter directly into usable energy. They're essentially eating the ship's infrastructure at the molecular level. Wonderful, Maya muttered, watching as her engineering console displayed a cascade of system failures. And I'm guessing conventional weapons won't work. Conventional weapons require technology to function, Ketch pointed out with the patience of someone explaining basic physics to a particularly slow child. These parasites feed on technological energy. Shooting at them would be like trying to kill a shark by feeding it fish. The ship lurched as something important in the engine room presumably became something important in the digestive system of an energy parasite. Maya grabbed the nearest support beam to steady herself, accidentally jostling Kvetch, who dug his tiny claws into her uniform to maintain his grip. Okay, she said, you mentioned there was a way to stop them. I'm really hoping it doesn't involve heroic sacrifices or impossible scientific breakthroughs, because we're running short on both time and miracles. Ketch's whiskers twitched in what Maya was learning to recognize as his thinking expression. The solution is actually quite simple, if somewhat undignified. Pessimeri naturally generate an electromagnetic field that disrupts the parasite's energy absorption capabilities. Under normal circumstances, this field isn't strong enough to be effective against a full swarm. Under normal circumstances? Torres asked, steadying himself as another power surge sent shockwaves through the ship's superstructure. However, Ketch continued, his tone becoming slightly embarrassed. The field can be significantly amplified through direct physical contact with a compatible species. Specifically, through what your species would probably call petting. Maya stared at him. You're telling me the solution to our apocalyptic crisis is giving you belly rubs? I prefer to think of it as tactical electromagnetic field enhancement through interpersonal contact. Kvetch replied with as much dignity as a creature requesting belly rubs could manage. But yes, essentially. The irony was not lost on Maya. After years of dealing with overcomplicated solutions to simple problems, she was facing a simple solution to what seemed like an impossibly complex problem. Of course, the simple solution involved treating a sarcastic alien pessimist like a particularly judgmental house cat. There's got to be a catch, she said, because in her experience there was always a catch. The catch, Kvetch said, looking even more embarrassed, is that the process requires sustained contact and a certain degree of emotional synchronization. The electromagnetic field is tied to our emotional state. It works best when we're content and relaxed. Maya looked around the lab, taking in the flickering lights, the failing equipment, and her increasingly panicked colleagues. So you need to be happy and relaxed while our ship is being eaten by interdimensional parasites? I told you that you wouldn't like it. Another power surge rocked the ship, and Maya could hear the distant sound of bulkheads groaning under stress. Whatever time they had left was running out quickly. All right, she said, settling down on the floor and patting her lap. Come here, you cosmically pessimistic furball. Let's save the universe through the power of forced affection. Ketch looked at her with an expression that might have been gratitude mixed with cosmic resignation. You know, Maya, in 3,000 years of existence, you're the first person who's ever made impending doom sound almost pleasant. As he settled into her lap, Maya could already feel a strange tingling sensation, like static electricity but warmer and somehow more purposeful. Around them, the ship's emergency lighting began to stabilize, and the klaxon's wailing took on a slightly less apocalyptic tone. Is it working? Foster asked, her scanner finally showing steady readings for the first time since the crisis began. Maya looked down at Ketch, who was purring softly, while she scratched behind his ears. I think so. But we're going to need to maintain this for a while, aren't we? At least until the parasites exhaust themselves trying to feed on disrupted energy fields, Ketch confirmed, his voice muffled by the fact that he was nuzzling against Maya's hand. Could take hours. Maya settled back against the lab wall, preparing for what was undoubtedly going to be the strangest save-the-ship sequence of her career. 2 hours later, Maya had discovered several important facts about saving the universe through strategic pet therapy. First, Ketch was an incredibly effective early warning system, his pessimistic predictions allowing them to stay ahead of the parasites spread through the ship. Second, the electromagnetic field he generated while being petted was indeed capable of repelling energy-based entities. And third, for all his complaints about organic species, Ketch was surprisingly good at being petted. Power grid stabilizing in sections 1 through 6, Torres reported, consulting a tricorder that was finally giving consistent readings. The parasites seemed to be retreating from areas with high electromagnetic interference. Maya continued her rhythmic scratching behind Ketch's ears, which had somehow become the most important job on the ship. How are we doing on the engine room? That's where it gets interesting, Dr. Foster said, looking up from her scanner with an expression of scientific fascination. The parasites aren't just retreating. They're actually being converted back into harmless energy and dissipating into space. Ketch lifted his head from Maya's lap, though he was careful not to break contact entirely. Of course they are. Pessimari electromagnetic fields don't just disrupt energy parasites, they reverse their conversion process. It's like forcing them to throw up everything they've eaten. That's disgusting, Maya said, but she kept petting him anyway. Also incredibly convenient. The universe has a twisted sense of humor, Ketch replied, settling back into a comfortable position. The species known for pointing out why everything will go wrong turns out to be the solution to one of the galaxy's worst problems. The irony is almost painful. Captain Hendrick's voice crackled over the intercom, much clearer now that the ship's communication systems were recovering. Engineering, what's your status? Maya keyed her communicator with her free hand. Sir, we've got the situation under control. The parasites are being neutralized, and ship systems are coming back online. We should have full power restored within the hour. Outstanding work, Rodriguez. What was the solution? Maya looked down at Ketch, who was now purring loudly enough to be heard over the ship's ventilation system. Let's just say it involved some unconventional thinking and leave it at that, sir. There was a pause. Rodriguez, are you petting something? No, sir, Maya lied smoothly. Just recalibrating some sensitive equipment. Dr. Foster bit back a laugh, while Torres made a valiant effort to maintain his professional composure. Ketch, meanwhile, was practically vibrating with contentment, his electromagnetic field now strong enough that Maya could see it interfering with nearby electronic displays. Sir, Maya continued, I'd like to formally request that we add Ketch to our crew roster as a consultant. A consultant? Hendrick's voice carried a note of suspicion. A very specialized consultant, Maya clarified. He has extensive experience with ancient technologies and early warning systems. Plus, he seems to have developed some useful abilities for dealing with energy-based threats. Ketch looked up at her with what might have been surprise. You want me to stay? Well, Maya said, continuing her careful attention to his ears, someone needs to stick around and point out all the ways we're going to mess up in the future. Might as well be someone who's actually good at it. Besides, she added with a grin, you're the only crew member who shares my realistic outlook on our chances of survival. It'll be nice to have someone who appreciates proper pessimism. Ketch's purr became even louder. You know, Maya, in 3,000 years of existence, You're the first person who's ever made cynicism sound like a virtue. Commander Torres cleared his throat. So, just to be clear, our new crew member is an ancient alien who predicts disasters and requires regular petting to maintain his supernatural abilities? That's correct, Maya said, not seeing the problem. And this seems normal to you? Maya looked around the lab, taking in the recovering systems, the relieved faces of her colleagues, and the small, purring creature in her lap who had just saved their entire ship through the power of strategic emotional support. Torres, I've been in Starfleet for 5 years. At this point, normal is just a setting on the washing machine. Besides, every ship needs a mascot. And Ketch here comes with built-in disaster prediction capabilities. It's like having a smoke detector that can also tell you exactly why your house is going to burn down. I prefer emotional support pessimist, Ketch corrected. It has a more professional ring to it. Dr. Foster was already making notes on her datapad. Actually, from a scientific perspective, having a living repository of galactic history aboard would be invaluable. The research opportunities alone. Doctor, Ketch interrupted, his tone taking on its familiar note of patient exasperation. If you're planning to study me, I should warn you that I have very strong opinions about proper research methodology, and comfortable furniture, and meal schedules, and pretty much everything else. Perfect, Maya said, scratching under his chin and earning another burst of contented purring. He'll fit right in. As the ship's systems continued their recovery, Maya reflected on the day's events. They'd started with a routine mission, encountered an ancient alien artifact covered in warning signs, ignored all reasonable precautions, unleashed a catastrophic threat, and saved the day through the power of giving belly rubs to a sarcastic space ferret. In other words, it had been a perfectly normal day aboard the Wanderlust. You know what the best part is? Maya asked Ketch, who was now so relaxed that he was practically melting into her lap. What's that? For once, someone listened to the voice of doom before it was too late. Ketch's whiskers twitched with amusement. Don't get used to it. Your species has a remarkable ability to ignore good advice, even when it comes from someone who's been right about everything so far. Maya grinned. Yeah, but now I've got backup. Between the two of us, we might actually keep these idiots alive long enough to make some real mistakes. Now that, Ketch said, settling deeper into her lap, sounds like the beginning of a beautiful friendship. The ship hummed around them, its systems restored and its crew safe, saved by the most unlikely partnership in the galaxy. A pessimistic human engineer and an ancient alien who had finally found someone who appreciated his talents for catastrophic thinking. Captain Hendrick's voice came over the intercom one more time. Rodriguez, prepare for departure. We've got another artifact to investigate in the Rigel system. Maya looked down at Ketch, whose ears had perked up with interest. Let me guess, she said. This one's probably cursed too? Oh, definitely, Ketch replied with the satisfaction of someone who knew they were absolutely right. They always are. But don't worry, Maya. This time, you've got someone who can tell you exactly how badly it's going to go wrong. Maya keyed her communicator. Acknowledged, Captain. Rodriguez and consulting pessimist, ready for departure. As the Wanderlust engaged its engines and headed for their next inevitable disaster, Maya couldn't help but smile. For the first time in her career, she was looking forward to the next crisis. After all, she finally had someone who understood that the best way to handle catastrophe was to see it coming.